In our headlines on this Monday, November 10th, here in South Korea, government officials and ruling lawmakers agree on a new greenhouse gas emission reduction range targeting up to a 61% cut compared to the level recorded in 2018 by the year 2035. Meanwhile, on the trade front, exports recorded their best quarterly performance in the third quarter of this year, led by chips and cars, and an expansion in the number of small and medium-sized exporting companies. Also, we are counting down 3 days to this year's college entrance test, during which over 500,000 test takers nationwide will sit down for the annual scholastic examination that sets the future path of their academic endeavors. South Korea will seek to slash its greenhouse gas emissions by 53 to 61% compared to the level seen in 2018 by the year 2035. Our political correspondent An Sung-jin has details.
The government and ruling Democratic Party have reached a consensus on South Korea's 2035 greenhouse gas reduction targets. A high-level policy consultation meeting on Sunday was attended by Prime Minister Kim Min-seok, leader of Democratic Party Jung Chong-nae, and Presidential Chief of Staff Kang Won-sik. At the meeting, the target for reducing South Korea's greenhouse gas emission under its 2035 nationally determined contribution to the Paris Agreement was set at the 53% to 61% range.
For a sustainable future, reducing national greenhouse gas emissions is a task that can no longer be postponed.
The government had presented two final candidate plans for reducing greenhouse gas emissions last week by either 50 to 60% or 53 to 60%, compared to 2018 levels by 2035, replacing the current target of a 40% reduction by 2030. Through this meeting, the upper limit has been raised by 1 percentage point, a move interpreted as showing the government's stronger commitment to reducing carbon emissions. Civil society groups had called for a 65% reduction, while industry representatives proposed a 48% reduction. The government and ruling party pledged to seek additional support to ease the burden on industries through measures such as the KGX Green Transition Strategy to support Korean companies in transitioning to decarbonized industries and to foster the growth of a greener society. The final target range will be approved by the Presidential Commission on Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth and the Cabinet this week, before submission to the UN next week. Other items on the agenda included tax relief measures aimed at sustaining the recent rise in the KOSPI stock index. The initial government proposal was to impose a top tax rate of 35% on dividend income exceeding 300 million won, or around $206,000. However, the ruling party called for lowering the top tax rate to 25% in an effort to strengthen shareholder value and reduce the tax burden for income earned from stock dividends. So the ruling bloc is considering a revised plan. Though the two sides now seem to have settled on a 25% top tax rate, the final rate will be fixed through discussions at the upcoming regular session of the National Assembly. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Presidential Chief of Staff Kang Won-sik is visiting the United Arab Emirates this week as a special economic envoy. On his agenda is defense industry cooperation with senior UAE officials. The UAE signed a contract back in 2022 to purchase South Korea's Cheongung-2 missile system. Its Crown Prince, Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed Al Nahyan, was in South Korea for the APEC forum late last month and sat down on the margins of that multilateral meeting with President Lee Jae-myung. On the trade front, exports recorded their best quarterly performance in the third quarter of this year, led by chips and cars, and an expansion in the number of small and medium-sized exporting companies. Our correspondent Moon Ji-young has more.
Exports expanded during the July to September period, marking a 6.5% increase from the same period last year to reach $185 billion. According to the Ministry of Data and Statistics on Monday, this expansion marks the largest quarterly export figure since the ministry began compiling relevant data in 2010. The growth also marks the second consecutive quarter of year-on-year growth, following a 2.1% rise in the second quarter. In addition, the number of exporting firms grew 4.5% year-on-year to nearly 70,000. The ministry explained that although unresolved, South Korea-U.S. tariff negotiations could have weighed on exports through the third quarter. Strong semiconductor shipments led the overall export growth. By type of goods, exports of capital goods led by semiconductors increased by over 11%, while consumer goods led by automobiles rose nearly 5%, ending 4 consecutive quarters of decline. By company size, SME exports surged nearly 12%, led by increases in consumer and capital goods. Mid-sized firms also posted strong results, with exports growing 7%, primarily in capital goods and raw materials. And large enterprises saw an over 5% rise in exports driven by capital goods. The ministry noted that increased semiconductor exports were the main driver for large firms, while growth in semiconductor parts and equipment boosted medium-sized companies' exports. While automobile exports to the U.S. and China fell, shipments to Europe increased, driven by robust demand for electric vehicles. Total imports saw a modest rise of 1.5%, amounting to $162.4 billion. 문지영, Arirang News.
On the local bourse, the benchmark KOSPI index gained ground on this Monday following last week's tumble over fears of an AI bubble. The index closed at 4,073.24, regaining 3% after plunging past the 4,000 mark last Friday. Shares of Samsung Electronics rose over 2.2% to surpass the 100,000 Korean won mark again. Shares of SK Hynix also soared above the 600,000 won mark. Meanwhile, the local currency strengthened slightly against the US dollar, trading at 1,451 Korean won at the day's close. Defense Minister An Gyubek says a future fleet of nuclear-powered submarines would be a triumph of self-reliant national defense. Speaking to local media this past weekend, An asserted the presence of such a submarine would strengthen South Korea's readiness posture against North Korea, rendering the regime's leader, Kim Jong-un, quote, unable to sleep. He also claimed it would be practical to build the submarine here at home rather than over in the U.S. and forecast the project would be completed within 10 years. After approval for this ambitious plan, U.S. President Donald Trump added the fleet would be built at a shipyard in Philadelphia. Meanwhile, in yet another disturbing development, North Korea-supported hackers remotely reset smartphones here in South Korea using Google's location-based tracking system. Our Ian Jin explains.
Genian Security Center, a South Korean cybersecurity institute, released a report on Monday to say that a North Korean-backed hacker group has carried out a destructive cyber attack that remotely controlled Android smartphones and PCs to not only steal personal information, but also completely wipe key documents. The distribution of malware through a messenger platform impersonating trusted acquaintances is a method that has been analyzed to be typical of North Korean cyber attacks. But according to the threat analysis report, this latest incident reveals a new, unprecedented attack technique. The malware infiltrating the victim's smartphones or PCs contained webcam and microphone control features, suggesting that the attackers could have monitored the victim's activities in real time. Using Google's location services, the hackers confirmed when the victims were away from their desks at home or office, then executed a remote wipe command on Android personal devices, deleting all stored data. The report explained that the remote reset halted normal device operations, temporarily blocking notification and message alerts, which effectively cut off the account owner's awareness channels, thereby delaying detection and response. This demonstrates tactical maturity, marking the development of what is called Advanced Persistent Threats, or APTs. The Cybersecurity Institute advised smart device users to actively practice personal data security measures, such as enabling two-step authentication, avoiding saving passwords automatically in browsers, and turning off PCs when not in use. Further, it emphasized the importance of device manufacturers strengthening multi-factor authentication systems. Ian Jin, Arirang News.
The Trump administration is demanding U.S. states, quote, undo any action taken to fully fund food assistance for their less privileged families, threatening potential penalties. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
The Trump administration is directing U.S. states to halt full food aid payments to low-income families, claiming such payments are unauthorized. A new memo from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which oversees the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, has instructed states to issue only 65% of benefits this month. This follows a Supreme Court decision allowing the administration to withhold part of the funding while legal challenges continue. More than 42 million Americans who depend on SNAP began receiving reduced benefits due to the ongoing federal government shutdown, now in its 40th day. Some states, including New York, Massachusetts, California, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, had continued to provide full benefits after a lower court ruling ordered full payments. The USDA memo now demands that those states immediately undo any full distributions and recover excess funds, warning that failure to comply could lead to the suspension of federal administrative funding or penalties for overissuances. Meanwhile, the economic strain on the prolonged shutdown is deepening. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Sunday that while the U.S. economy was fantastic under President Trump in the last 2 quarters, growth for the current quarter could be cut in half if the shutdown drags on.
We had a fantastic economy under President Trump the past 2 quarters, and now there are estimates that the economic growth for this quarter could be cut by as much as half if the shutdown continues.
The comments come as millions of federal workers remain furloughed, while key public services continue to suffer disruptions. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump on Sunday defended his economic policies, touting what he called the dividend of a strong America. He announced that every American, except for high-income earners, would receive a dividend of at least $2,000 per person, crediting his tariff policies for the nation's wealth. Claiming that the U.S. is now the richest, most respected country in the world, Trump called the dividend a reward for the country's economic success. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Back here on the local front, we are counting down 3 days to this year's college entrance test, during which over 500,000 test takers nationwide will sit down for the annual scholastic examination that determines their future academic path. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
These packages are among the most heavily protected parcels in the nation. They contain the test papers for the Suneung, or the College Scholastic Ability Test, which are being distributed to 85 test districts. The papers are being transported under heavy security and will be stored at secure locations until the exam this Thursday. This year, 554,174 students are registered to take the test at 1,310 centers nationwide. The Education Ministry says it is working with teachers on site to ensure a smooth process over the final 3 days.
For the remaining 3 days, we will meticulously check to ensure there are no disruptions to the exam. The Education Ministry will do its best, together with the teachers, preparing on site.
Nationwide support measures will be in place this Thursday to ensure students can take the exam without disruption. The exam runs from 8:40 a.m. to 5:45 p.m. To prevent traffic congestion, the government has requested public offices and businesses to delay their start times until 10 a.m. During the peak student commute from 6 a.m. to 8:10 a.m., subway services in the Seoul metropolitan area will be expanded. Scenes like this, test takers getting out of a police car will not be a surprise, as police will also provide emergency escorts for students running late to ensure they arrive on time. Additionally, private vehicle access will be prohibited within 200 meters of test site entrances, requiring students to walk the remaining distance. Strict noise control measures will be enforced. The drivers of buses and trains near exam sites are asked to slow down and avoid using horns, while construction and public events are requested to minimize noise. These measures will peak during the 25-minute English listening test starting at 1:10 p.m. During this window, all aircraft takeoffs and landings nationwide will be suspended and all military exercises, including artillery fire and tank movements, will be halted. These nationwide efforts underscore a society pausing in support of the test takers who are also mostly teens, reflecting the same hopes and fervent prayers of parents nationwide as they try to reach their full potential. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
In other news, K-culture influencers worldwide gathered here in Seoul for a festival aimed at fostering cultural diplomacy. Our Pyongyang was there.
Held at the CKL stage in central Seoul, the K-Creators Awards kicked off the 2025 K-Wave Festival and honored global influencers, honorary reporters, and winners of the Talk Korea contest who have promoted Korea's culture in unique ways. Streamed live on KoreaNet's official YouTube channel, the event opened with a dynamic taekwondo performance by junior K-Tigers, followed by remarks from a Culture Ministry representative.
In 2025, fueled by the global popularity of K-pop Demon Hunters, interest in Korean lifestyle, from food and fashion to traditional houses and medicine, is spreading worldwide. This growing closeness between Korea and the world is made possible by the passion and dedication of those who share and celebrate Korean culture.
Awards were presented to 15 individuals from around the world, recognizing their efforts to share Korean stories beyond just pop music.
Of course, I'm happy and feel proud of myself because this is my first time for me, and it keeps reminding for me to keep growing.
In this opportunity to create content about this topic, for me, it's really amazing for this connect with these people around the world.
And I think Korean literature is a hidden gem, so I want to introduce people to it and share my passion. And actually, I think Middle Eastern countries can learn from Korea's experience because they have some similarities.
After the ceremony, winners embarked on a 9-day cultural tour, exploring Seoul's landmarks and experiencing the depth of Korean heritage firsthand. The Culture Ministry says it hopes that events like this will help Korea share its creativity with the world, not just through K-pop, but through every facet of its culture. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
Shifting gears to esports, South Korea's T1 has made history by clinching its third straight League of Legends World Championship title this past Sunday. In an all-Korean final held in China, the team led by legendary captain Lee Sang-hyuk, known as Faker, defeated KT Rolster in a close match. Sunday's win also marks T1's 6th World Championship victory since 2013. No team has won more world titles than T1.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. A powerful super typhoon has slammed into the Philippines, forcing nearly 1 million people to evacuate and killing at least 2. Super Typhoon Fung-Wong made landfall late on Sunday night in Aurora Province on Luzon, with winds of 185 kilometers per hour and gusts up to 230 kilometers per hour. By early Monday, it had weakened slightly, but continued to pound Luzon with torrential rain and destructive winds. Authorities warn of life-threatening storm surges and floods. Airports in the area are closed, and nearly 300 flights have been canceled. The storm comes just days after Typhoon Kalmegi hit the Philippines, killing more than 200 people. Authorities say Typhoon Fung-Wong will move northwest through Monday before heading to Taiwan midweek. In the UK, the BBC's 2 top executives have resigned following a backlash over how the network edited a speech by U.S. President Donald Trump. Director General Tim Davie and new CEO Deborah Turnus announced their resignations on Sunday, saying they take full responsibility over a documentary on the 2021 Capitol riot. The documentary edited a section of Trump's speech, putting together 2 parts of the speech that were actually more than 50 minutes apart, sparking accusations of bias. Both leaders said they're stepping down to protect the broadcaster's credibility. The British government has pledged to help the BBC restore public trust as it searches for new leadership. In Brazil, a powerful tornado has torn through a town in the south of the country, killing at least 6 people and injuring hundreds, just as the country prepares to host the UN Climate Summit. The storm hit late Friday with winds reaching 250 kilometers an hour, destroying about 90% of Rio Bonito do Iguaçu in Paraná State, home to 14,000 residents. Authorities say more than 750 people were injured, and rescue teams are still searching for the missing. The state governor has declared 3 days of mourning, and President Lula has ordered emergency aid to the region. The disaster struck just before Brazil hosts the UN Climate Summit COP30, which is scheduled to begin on Monday in the northern port city of Belém. Lady Gaga and Kendrick Lamar lead this year's Grammy nominations as K-pop earns its first ever spot in the Song of the Year category. Lamar tops the 2026 list with 9 nominations, including Album of the Year for GNX, while Gaga follows with 7 for her electropop record Mayhem. 2 K-pop tracks, Rosé and Bruno Mars' Apatu and Huntrix's Golden, made with their inclusion in the main song category. It's also the first time that 3 rap albums appear on the Album of the Year shortlist. Winners will be announced in Los Angeles on February 1st, 2026. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
As the cold air came down from the north overnight, sudden cold appeared this morning across the country. The morning temperature in Seoul plummeted to 5.4 degrees Celsius, about 5 degrees lower than yesterday morning. This early winter cold will continue until Wednesday morning. The daytime temperature in Seoul will rise up to 15 degrees, back to the average temperature for this time of year. However, the daily temperature range will widen by 10 degrees. Please take good care of your health by dressing warmly. Tomorrow morning will start cold at 3 degrees in Seoul and Daejeon, and Gyeongju 4 degrees in Daegu. Highs will top out at 14 to 18 degrees all over the country. On Thursday, the day of college entrance exam, the skies will be clear with mild temperature without any sudden cold. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.